Hello, this is the AUS Rugby scene on 8-9 Rugby, and in the guest chair for the next episode of the new Aussie Focus show, novelist and author of the Wrap, now exclusive on 8-9 Rugby on Substack every Monday, Geoff Parkes. Hello, mate. How are you?
Very well, Brett, and it's great to be on 8-9 Rugby on Substack. It's we'll talk about that a bit later, but
we will.
Yeah, we're really off to a great start, building a nice rugby community, and hopefully we can give everyone plenty of great content.
Yeah. So it started well. We've made ourselves busier, haven't we?
Well, that's true. Bit of a rod for your own back situation, but you know we do it because we love it, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. So a quick explainer of how 8-9 Rugby is going to work, or is working in 2026. It's obviously the next evolution of the combo, and Harry's departure has made way for a whole host of guest hosts every week, and that'll extend to this new show as well, the AUS Rugby scene. And it's a new weekly show that applies the same 8-9 format and style to a more local focus down in this part of the rugby world, which we're looking forward to getting into. So thank you, mate, for climbing into the chair with me this week. I reckon we just get straight into his cheers, which is continuing in 26. What are you cheering from around our part of the rugby world this weekend?
Well, I've actually got two cheers. Are you allowed to have two? Can I ask that?
You've got a stake in the enterprise now, mate. You can definitely have two.
Okay, well, yeah. I'll take advantage of the privileged position. So, cheers to Sean Maloney. Sean Maloney, who's no stranger to this particular seat. He invited me into the commentary box on Friday night in Sydney at Allianz Stadium.
Great.
And so I sat in there for a patch of the second half alongside him and Morgan Turanui. And it was great to get a real first up look at how the experts do it. I'm well aware that not everyone gets that opportunity, and I was also lucky enough to spend some time, a whole match in the Rebels coaches box as well a couple of years ago. So it really is a different perspective when you're in that sort of situation. And if I can pass something on to watchers and listeners, the big thing that's different is just how quiet it is and how intense it all is. So it's not like sitting outside in your seat and you've got the ambient crowd noise and everyone's yelling out at the ref or cheering for their side. It's deathly quiet.
Yeah.
And it's all business. And of course, the hard thing for someone like me, and I'd imagine you're the same, is that we have to keep our mouth shut. We're not allowed to yell out anything.
Yes, mics are live. Yes.
Yeah, or have a look at that, mate. You've missed that, or no, you got that wrong. So you've got to know your place. But look, it was great to see the boys at work, and I've definitely got a real a new take on that, and a lot of respect for what they do. So thank you, Sean Maloney. The other cheers from the same match is for Paul Williams. So Paul Williams in the second half saw an incident with Folau Fainga, and Folau was down on the ground. It was a reasonable expectation for the ref that he would be taken off and sent into HIA protocols. But he wanted to play on, unsurprisingly. All players want to play on. The New South Wales medics seemed to be okay about that. They were happy to have that go into the hands of the independent doctors. And what normally happens in those ones that aren't Category 1 is that the doctor will view the next few phases of play and look for signs that the players are affected. They'll also review the incident itself, and they'll make a decision based on that information, whether the player should come off for a check or not. But, that can take 2 or 3 minutes, a few phases of play. Williams backed himself. We often forget, Brett, that the refs are a lot closer to the action than everybody else. And he was confident that he'd seen something in Folau's reaction, and he was not having a bar of him continuing on the field without being checked. So I really rate that. I think he did the right thing. It's no big deal. Just put the player off, get him into care, get him checked. And if it turns out he's okay, that's the lesser of two evils than getting it wrong the other way.
That's the process working. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, and so big cheers out to Paul Williams.
That's a good one. Yeah. He was right on top of Folau Fainga'a as it happened. He stopped play straight away. He said, no, we've got a concern here. So medics came on, and I've seen a little bit of criticism around, how did the Waratahs doctor miss that? Well, for one thing, there's an independent doctor involved as well, but also they then run onto the field. So there's a period where they physically get to him, and by the time they've got to him, they've done their checks. He may well have.
Yeah, that's right. He got up and took it off, said, I'm good to go.
So that's it. But for Paul Williams to say, no, hang on, I've seen the signs here. I think you need to take him off. And then he was judged Cat 1 straight away, so he didn't even do an HLA.
Yeah. So
it was absolutely the right call. It's a good shout that you make. That's a good one, and I agree. And Paul Williams actually had a good game, which kind of leads me into mine. And I wonder if we might be seeing an end of diving, and particularly the days of players trying to dive over defenders on the try line. They might look numbered with a couple of instances in Super Rugby pulled up on the weekend, eventually in one case. And Holly Davidson actually penalised Dan Sheehan in the Ireland-Italy Six Nations game as well. So the message might be getting through, even if Tupou Vaa'i still thinks he's a genius. And I suppose I'll give Super Rugby a bit of a rap for coming out on Monday morning going, no, that decision from Ben O'Keefe should not have happened. That try should not have awarded. And they could easily have left that behind closed doors. They could easily have got in touch with the Chiefs and the Blues and said, no, that's wrong. Ben O'Keefe probably did make the admission anyway, but they actually made it public. So, I don't mind that. It cleared up the discussion straight away, because I certainly thought at the time, is that allowed? And then I had an explanation given to me that, well, it's not actually a ruck. He's not diving over a ruck. It's okay, I think. And so I was actually prepared to accept that, but no, it was not okay. And that was that. So.
Okay. Well,
we'll see.
I'm glad you said your piece, mate, because I've got a contrary view to that.
Righto.
I don't think it's cleared up at all. And I think it's a Clayton's clarification. So, look, the law's contradictory, right? So last week, you weren't allowed to leap over a player to avoid being tackled, but you were allowed to dive in the act of scoring a try.
Yes.
Now, even after
that was the word. That was the wording in the World Rugby clarification last year, that you can't jump over a defender, but in the act of dive of scoring a try, you can dive for the line, and defenders can actually make a legal tackle in the air. So that was
correct. And so the classic example of that last year was Dan Sheehan scoring in the MCG test. Yes. And look, it opens up all these side issues, right? So here's Wallabies fans, sulking for months because of the issue with Carlo Tizzano and Jack Morgan at the end of the game. And really, they were dudded not so much because of that. They were dudded because Sheehan scored a try that, according to the ruling in clarification made on Monday, that wouldn't have been allowed. So, we've got an extra reason now for Wallabies fans to be aggrieved that they didn't win the Lions series.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, last week, those two contradictory possibilities in the law existed. We've had Tupou Vaa'i score a try, and we've had a so-called clarification. And now today, those two things still exist. It's still up. He can still dive to score a try, and he's not allowed to leap to avoid being tackled. So really, all that's happened is that somebody's given an opinion on that particular incident and said that Ben O'Keefe was wrong, and he's ruled in favour of Vaa'i, and he should have ruled against him. but it still comes down to a referee's interpretation.
Yes, it does.
Which one of those two things takes precedence over the other?
And so Paul Williams pulled Miles Amatessero up in the New South Wales Queensland game on Friday night. He said straight away, no, I can't reward you for doing that. They can't make a legal tackle on you, so we can't give that. And then he went back to penalty advantage, something like that. Holly Davidson on the game on Saturday just blew penalty straight away to Italy. And then, Ben O'Keefe rules try. So
Ben O'Keefe's standing there, and he gave the explanation to the players on the field and said, "You are allowed
in the
to
act of
dive
scoring a try."
In the act of scoring a try, he's 100% right. All that's happened is that there's a contrary law, and they're saying that he should have applied that, given that precedence over the one that he did, and so it's still a mess. And I'll tell you what's happened here with no fear. What's happened here is that the referee's boss and the Super Rugby Pacific boss have received a phone call from Vern Cotter at some stage on Sunday, very early on Sunday morning, I'd suggest, or even late on Saturday night. And I know firsthand you don't want to get offside with Vern. I've had my particular issue with
you've had this experience,
and so that would have been blistering. He would have been absolutely fuming. So they've come out on Monday and they've said, actually, this shouldn't have happened. And but I don't think that's not going to stop it happening next week or the week after or the week after.
No, but I think it will stop making. So even though it was awarded on the day and now they've clarified it. So that's now two instances where in Super Rugby alone, the first week, where against the attacking player.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I think the one in Sydney, that's not comparable. That was clearly a player.
That was diving over a ruck.
Diving over the ruck. That's a separate rule. You're not allowed to dive over the ruck. So we can put that one to bed straight away. So and answer me this. So what's we're confusing the hell out of defenders. So those guys, the Wallabies defending against Dan Sheehan, the Blues defending against Tupou Vaa'i, we're encouraging guys to go low, right? Because we don't want them to be upright and risk getting head on head. So they go in nice and low, and of course the attacker just dives straight over the top of them. So it is. I understand the willingness to stop that, because clearly then players are going to stay high, and we don't want that. But answer me this. Here's a little conundrum for you. You're a defender and you're running across corner flagging, and the winger is racing into the corner, right? So this is a scenario we see plenty of times. And typically the defender is going to do their best to push the player out before he's able to force the ball. Or if he's close enough, he's going to throw an arm and try and dislodge the ball as the player reaches out to dive. Why wouldn't you, as a defender, forget about playing at the ball or at the player, but just dive down onto the ground, sort of, doggy style almost, and
make them to dive over the top of you. Yeah.
Now, what's going to happen then?
It's a good question.
Well, I'm not
saying. It's a good question.
Look, Super Rugby coaches are going to coach their defenders to do that. But look, if anyone does, and they want the idea, I'm available for
Yeah, your coaching consultancy fees are very affordable. Yeah. No, that's
look. The problem here is that the law still has a contradiction in it, and it's not the only place in rugby where there's contradictory laws, right? The breakdown's full of it.
I think what we'll end up with is referees will see, as soon as someone is diving over a defender, they'll just blow it up. That's how I think the interpretation will go.
I think that's right. But I mean, aren't we encouraging people in rugby to seek space? Not just to go into collision.
Yeah. What's the old cricket adage? You can't. Plenty of room in the air. Anyway, well, the great rugby chats will continue in just a second, dude. They've been going on already. After you all hit the red subscribe button down there in the bottom corner if you're on YouTube, and if you hit subscribe, hit follow, hit like, whatever it is on any of the pod platforms, and wherever you are, make sure you turn the notifications are on. So, Super Rugby Pacific round 1, mate. Some interesting scores amongst them all. The Highlanders have a great win in Dunedin on Friday night. The Waratahs obviously beat Queensland at the game you were at in Sydney. Moana with maybe the boil over the round, beating the Drua at Churchill Park in Lautoka in Fiji. The Chiefs got over the Blues in a bit of an arm wrestle in Auckland, and then the Brumbies were just way too good for the Western Force over in Perth. What of those results caught your eye the most over the weekend, mate?
Well, yeah, they're all interesting. So if I'm to single a couple of things out, well, the Brumbies caught my eye. There's no doubt about that. And, I think we've all been concerned that they've lost a lot of quality, and that's undoubtedly true. But, they have a very strong system. Steve Larkham's a very competent operator. They still had plenty of quality in their side, right? We didn't see a lot of Charlie Cale last year. He's obviously come back in good form. You still got Rob Valentini in there. Look, I just thought they were so efficient. They capitalised on they didn't get a lot of red zone opportunities in the first half in particular, but they capitalised on the ones they did. Their first time tackling was outstanding. It was a bit of rope-a-dope stuff. They let the Force just throw everything at them. And they kept knocking them over. And then with the heat and the frustration that inevitably builds, they were able to run away with it at the end. So I just thought that was a thoroughly professional performance. We don't know about the quality of the opposition, but the Brumbies should be delighted with that.
Yeah, and what it and I mentioned this in my 8-9 column on Tuesday, that it represented a 98-point turnaround from the trial result only 2 weeks earlier in Perth as well. So it's a massive result for them, and already it's given them a bit of luxury. They've named an unchanged side for the Crusaders this weekend. So like Nick Frost, for example, is again not playing this weekend. He's come back from the Wallabies tour, and they knew it was going to take some time for him to get into his groove. Well, now they've sort of got the luxury of, well,
no need to rush him back.
Let's not rush him. Let's sort of ease it all in here. So yeah, that's worked well. That's worked well. The Waratahs are impressive. I didn't think they would be that ruthless. I thought that game in Sydney would be a really, really good contest. I didn't expect it to blow out like they did it, and it showed that maybe there's a bit of life in the February champions yet. We're forever falling in love with the Waratahs at the start of every season, but they showed something a lot different, I think in round 1 2026 than what we've seen in previous round ones.
Yeah, no question about that. I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was a great first game, full of action, really entertaining. The crowd was a little bit disappointing, I must say. And hopefully the word will get around that, they're going to play good, entertaining rugby. And, it's a terrific stadium there now since it's been remodeled. So let's hope they get more people along. Yeah, look, I thought what I liked about the Waratahs was I thought their transition play was excellent. Even though Max Jorgensen gets all the credit for his step on Jock Campbell, that was just one of a few examples of them moving the ball away from a danger area very quickly into space. And Lawson Crichton was heavily involved with that. And in another instance as well, really good skill, really good fast hand movement. And yeah, I like the look of Crichton. He was also the key key man in that fantastic length of the field try they scored last year from behind their own goal line. He's a skillful player, and I don't think he came with that sort of rap on him. I think people look at him and think he's a steady Eddie guy, but he's not. He's really got a skill set, and he's got a lot of composure. He covers a lot of ground. They had him at the back fielding kicks. He's a big frame, so he can, he's not afraid to tackle. So I'm going to be keeping a close watch on him, but certainly made a great start. But the Waratahs, great depth, the luxury of bringing Pete Samu on in the second half. And
wasn't he good?
As the game loosened up a bit,
Samu
had a bit of space in the wide channels, and they, it wasn't just he had the space; they actually played to it as well. As they could sense that the Reds, they'd eventually got on top of them. So at the presser later, I just, Dan McKellar well, mate, and he's not a guy that easily hides his emotions, particularly when he's angry. It's very easy to know when to keep your distance. But he bounced into that room on Friday night, and he did. All the body language was, not even so much about this win, but he knows he's got a really great motor underneath him there. He's got something really great to work with. He doesn't want to get ahead of things. He's well aware of the February champions thing, and I think it's reasonable for all of us to think that the Waratahs will be a better side next year. But if we set that aside, I think it's only one game, it's only one win, but there's no reason why they can't go deep into this season as well.
Yeah, Dan was almost apologetic to your question. You sort of saying, do you rethink where you are? Look, Geoff, I know you don't want it, but I'm just going to say one game at a time.
Yeah, it was like, come and have a chat to me privately and I'll tell you the truth.
Yes, exactly.
I can't believe I've landed here with all these great players. But, to be fair, it's more than that. They've done a lot of work. He's instilled a disciplined program there. It's clear that they've talking to a couple of the players, they have worked very hard over the pre-season. And so you get rewards if you do that.
Yeah. Look, they were physical. They were on the ball well. Their breakdown was pretty solid. Their set piece was solid. Matt Phillip was really good. The young front row, which like the guys that started hadn't played a lot of Super Rugby, before this year. They've been in the system for a year or two now, but they've been bench players mostly, but the three of them were pretty strong up front. And there's a lot to like. It's a good shout about Lawson Crichton that you've left. And I again mentioned he doesn't have to be the flashy one. He's got Jake Gordon on his inside. He's got Suoliti and Jorgensen and Harry Potter on his outside. He just needs to give them the space to operate with. And I agree with you. I think he's when he came down from Queensland, I think everyone thought, "Oh, that's an interesting move." I'm not sure that if you're going from third choice fly half in Queensland, I'm not sure you're much better than second choice in New South Wales. And he might actually have landed in the hot seat. And he's doing a job that suits the way they want to play. So that's
exactly right.
Yeah. The Highlanders were surprisingly good, and I don't say that to disrespect the way they played, but I don't think anyone thought the Highlanders were going to be a top half team this year. So for them to come out on night one, game one, in fact, and really get on top of the Crusaders early and make the Crusaders chase the game was an incredible performance on Friday night.
Yeah, I was a bit more bullish about the Highlanders. I had rated them to make the finals this year, to be one of the big improvers. But I did that on the basis of, Jamie Joseph stepping into that role, head coaching role full time. I did that on the basis of Fabian Holland and Thomas Lavanini, forming the engine room there. Now, as it turned out, neither of them played in the first round, and Holland's out for the whole season.
I was going to say Holland won't play at all now, will he?
So when I looked at that second row, I'd agree with you. It is a surprising result when you look at that pack and think, is this a top level Super Rugby pack? But they've got some willing loose forwards, and they really lifted, and they took it up to the Crusaders, and good luck to them. And whether they can do that every week, and particularly with the situation with Jamie Joseph, if he does go to the All Blacks, and every indication is that that's likely to happen, they're going to have harder days ahead. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I wasn't surprised to see them play well. The Crusaders, you'd have to be disappointed with their effort. And yeah, the big disappointment for me was that final penalty. They did well to get back, take the lead. Will Jordan's clearly
was excellent
for rugby, and just a great player. And but for Cody Taylor to just give away a cheap nonsense penalty in midfield, something he didn't need to do. It's just rubbish play, and for an experienced guy to do that, particularly in the Crusaders system, I just think that's really poor. And it has crept into his game, and I think how do you go and talk to a 105 game All Black and say, mate, you're letting the young guys down? But I think that needs to happen. So that costs the game.
Agree with that. I'll start talking about this week's games by saying the Druid really disappointing in Lautoka, and the worry now as we look at round 2 is that they've got to land in Sydney on Friday and now take on a red hot Waratahs side. The Hurricanes will play their first game against the giant killing Moana Pacifica, and that's going to be a ripping game on Friday to kick things off as well. Now, obviously, the Highlanders Chiefs will be, I think, takes on new levels of intrigue on Saturday evening Australian time.
Particularly with the Chiefs now having been sort of clipped a bit, and they're not allowed to score by diving over the opposition. So.
You've taken away their whole attacking game plan there, of course.
Well, you take that out, you take Damien McKenzie out, what have they got left?
Exactly. It's a fair question. Of course, the Blues are in Perth, not at their usual oval. They're playing on the northern side of Perth this weekend, and for the next week or two, I think I've seen. And then the Crusaders Brumbies game is actually on Sunday. I've learned only about 3 or 4 days ago, so we've hit Sunday games already. So the Druid in Sydney on Friday night is actually a bit of a concern now, isn't it? Because they were surprisingly off the pace, worryingly off the pace.
Yeah, they were, and there's this assumption, obviously, that the games at Lautoka are an automatic win for them, and the Chiefs have gone up there, the Crusaders have gone up there, and all of them had their ass kicked, and why wouldn't they kick Moana Pacifica as well? And there's a couple of reasons, and one of them is Moana is very well organised. They had a great year last year, and clearly have built on that. Their discipline, their shape of their game is good. I really like Patrick Pellegrini in at 10. I think he's a really competent player. Miracle Failangi is one of the stars of Super Rugby. Has been.
He's
for 2 or 3
so good.
years.
There was a concern about Moana that without Artie Savea, they would go back to where they were, in years previous. But I mean,
no, it's
Miracle Failangi has a hat trick by half time, and it's sort of Artie who? Like that was it was incredible.
And it's not just a flash in the pan. He's just a great player, but he's not on his own. And they've got experience dotted through there now, and Laumapi in the midfield, and lots of the other even unheralded guys. They've got a lot more experience and cohesion under their belt now. They haven't had a lot of turnover really in their squad compared to some of the others, so they're going to be hard to beat all year. So where are we back to? The Drua. So look, it starts with the little stuff. You know, you're sending, as a coach, you're sending your team out first game of the year. Forget about Lautoka and all of that. You just got to do your basics well, and you got to retain possession. And so what happened? Their line out right from the start, it was misfiring. Isaac finds Leluwasa at halfback. You know, he's a wallaby now, and yet he was putting passes to his forward runners, you know, behind his shoulder and just from short distance. And so the ball's getting knocked on. They're unable to put pressure on, and they're back defending on their goal line. And then their discipline was terrible, just as the Reds was in Sydney on Friday night. So the sides that aren't performing the basics well are going to get, you know, punished severely, and that's my concern for the Drua. They'll come out on Friday night, they'll give it heaps against the Waratahs, and let's hope, you know, it really is competitive, and there's the talent in that side, there always is. But they have to get the basics right, and if they can't win their line outs, they can't hold their scrum up, then it's time to worry.
They can't be coughing up turnovers in the first 10 minutes like they did on Saturday afternoon last week. That's for sure. What do you like? I'm looking forward to seeing the Hurricanes. We obviously didn't see them on the weekend with the bye, but they're they look strong this year. I think they're pretty well regarded. Lawrence Mulvaney, our New Zealand scribe, has written a great piece on them on 8-9 Rugby on Substack that went live on Wednesday. So everyone should absolutely check that out. I'm keen to see how the Blues go with the travel leg to Perth, and whether, you know, being away for a couple of days can galvanise them for a side. And equally, I'm intrigued to see if the Brumbies can back that sort of performance from Perth up. It's a hell of an opening 2 weeks they've had. Perth to Christchurch inside a week. So I'd be keen to see how they follow on that pretty impressive win last week too.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting draw they've got, isn't it? Getting those, you know, I'm sure when Steve Larkham first saw that, he thought, you know, what the hell's going on here? They're sending us from, you know, apart from going to Dunedin, you know, the two longest trips they can have in the first two rounds. But you know, if they get through them, well, then it's happy days, because they've done all the difficult travel, and they've got a lot of home games to come up. So look, I'm looking forward to that game. I think the Crusaders, they have to be better this week. They're at home.
I'm sure they will be.
It's a big test for the Brumbies. So I think that's got a great contest written all over it. It's during the afternoon, so that's another plus. The Hurricanes, what you said about them, I sort of tipped them, of all the teams. The two teams that I singled out were the Highlanders to improve and the Hurricanes to improve, you know, potentially to win the competition. And I haven't backed away from that. They've added strength at lock with Warner Dearns.
Warner Dearns coming in for sure.
We're expecting, you know, a full season this year from Lomax at prop. Asafo Amur seems to have recovered from his injury. They're just strong all around the park. Clearly, Cam Roygaard's the best halfback in the competition. If Geordie Barrett plays fullback, which is the tip, they've got that sort of high ball. You know, they've got a strategy to deal with the high ball that a lot of other sides, I think, are still relying on a bit of a toss of the coin. He's clearly proficient at that. Billy Proctor's had a year with the All Blacks under his belt. So I think right across the team, we can expect big things from the Hurricanes. But they've stumbled against Moana Pacifica before. It's their first game. So
true. Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened.
And that might happen. Look, the other game and team that I want to mention is the Blues. You know, they won 2 years ago. Last year, everyone was waiting for them to produce that winning form, and it never really happened. They bumbled from week to week to week. They were too one-dimensional, and other teams, you know, figured them out. What I saw in that game against the Chiefs was, it felt to me like even though they lost, they had a better balanced team. They had, I think we're going to see a bit more, not just the crash and bash, pick and go play that we saw for so many rounds last year. And I do think we're going to see them try and bring Caleb Clark into play a lot more.
They have to.
Yeah, I like the return of, and not just as an extra loose forward, as a winger. And I did get a sense that their backline shape was better, and I don't think that's an accident with Stephen Perifetta being back. So I'm a little bit, I'm not saying I'm bullish about the Blues, but I'm not as negative towards them as what we saw last year. And even though they're travelling to Perth and they're coming off a loss, I'd expect them to be pretty good this week.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think they'll be better for the run, as they say, for sure. Mind
you, mate, the Force have to be a lot better this
week.
They
do. Yeah, I mean, that sort of goes without saying, doesn't it? They were disappointing last week for sure. The way they didn't, they were not able to convert their opportunities at all. So I'll be keen to see how they run out. 8-9 Rugby on Substack, mate. What have we got ourselves into? What are we doing? How's it going so far? How have you found our transition into publishing?
Well, ultimately it's not for us to judge. It's for the readers and readers to judge. All we can do is do our best and put a bit of content out there and say. But look, I think it's fair to say the media landscape's clearly changed a lot and is continuing to change. And I think there is a market for good, independent, sort of honest content. That's thought-provoking. It's not just chasing news headlines or anything like that. And around that, the objective is that we want to build a community, right? And we want people that are serious about rugby, but still want to come in and have a bit of a laugh as well. We're not going to be deadly serious about everything we write about, but we just want people to be in the community and think this is a good place to go to read good, solid rugby content and to have a bit of fun. And the thing we want them to do the most, for everyone watching and listening, is if you try it out and you like it, then tell all your friends. That's
absolutely,
the big thing.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have any friends, well, just put a billboard up outside your house and just tell anybody.
I'm just picturing what the front of your house looks like right now.
Well, exactly. I'm a bit skint for friends at the moment. So.
Yeah, and look, it's you're spot on in everything you say there. We're not setting out to replace anything like that, but there is definitely an opportunity and a hole, I think, particularly the way rugby is covered in Australia at the moment. There's a bit of a void of consistent coverage. I think I'll say so. If we can step into that void a little bit and offer good stuff most days of the week, then we'll be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to know. We're not going to be putting content up every hour as every little thing breaks, and that's just not possible. But for most days, there should be something interesting and thought-provoking and worthy of a read. Up there, we've got some great guest writers lined up to help us as well. And the other thing to say is that this isn't totally Australian rugby focused. Both of us, we watch rugby from everywhere. Clearly, there's a strong link to New Zealand through Super Rugby and the Bledisloe Cup and my background, and we've got Lawrence on now. So there'll be plenty for New Zealand fans, and there'll be plenty for international fans as well. And who knows, one day we may even encourage the elusive Harry Jones to contribute as well.
Yeah,
not that we're putting any pressure on him.
No, we're not putting any pressure. But if his people are listening, we'd certainly welcome it. I mentioned on 8-9 Rugby with Pat McKay this week that yes, discussions are ongoing with the Harry Jones camp. So we'll see how we go. Mate, this has been a great chat as always. You're busy enough on the book scene, mate. The first Law of the Bush publicity tour continues for the next few weeks, does it?
It's rolling on. I had a big week last week, and
you did.
I must send a cheers to my publicist as well, because she arranged an itinerary through country New South Wales, which was terrific, down the south coast, across to Canberra, and then up and again into New South Wales. And the one condition I had was that I needed to be back in Sydney by 6:30 on Friday night.
It was awfully convenient for you to be back in Sydney in time for kickoff on Friday night.
So the last event I had was at Bathurst Library around lunchtime on the Friday. So it gave me plenty of time to get back into Sydney for the game. Look, it's been terrific. Getting out to some of these venues in Cowra. I had a great crowd turnout in Cowra, of all places.
Oh, great.
And the country, the CWA, they put on a beautiful spread of scones and jam.
Of course they did. They did.
You've made it when you're wallowing in the scones and jam and cream. And people have driven a long distance to bring your first book along to be signed and to buy the second, and so it's a pretty humbling experience, I must say.
Great.
But it's terrific. So I've got dates this week in Melbourne, and then we're back on the road next week up the Murray River, ending up in Mildura, and you just got to do the hard yards, Brett. You got to go to where the people are and shake a few hands, and it's not a chore. It's actually a lot of fun.
You've been working so hard that you're in Canberra for an afternoon last week, and there wasn't even room for us to catch up. Never mind play golf or something actually useful.
No, it was in and out, mate. Although, I won't go there. There was another event on the same afternoon I was there. Featuring a prime minister from a certain country, and not everyone was happy to see him. So
that's true.
So let's just leave it there.
Yes, indeed.
He put it this way: he got more protesters to his event than I got readers to mine.
This is probably true. The first Law of the Bush is on sale now. Keep an eye on Geoff's socials for where he's up to next, but you can certainly find it in all your good bookshops. Oh, there it is. There, you can certainly see it on the shelves, flying at the moment. So no, I hope it all goes well as usual, mate. And obviously Geoff's wrap on 8-9 Rugby every Monday going forward. Thanks, mate. This has been a good chat, a meaty one at that too.
Yeah, no, terrific. Great start to the year, and thank you everybody for supporting 8-9 Rugby on Substack and for this pod. And let's have a real crack at building a great community for rugby in Australasia. Let's the will's there on our part, and we've got a lot of terrific people subscribed already. And so it's something that's great to be part of. So.
Great to have Geoff Parkes on the Oz rugby scene on 8-9 Rugby in 2026. He'll definitely be back throughout the season, and the guest host will obviously keep rolling through each week as well. I've mentioned already on 8-9 Rugby this week, Irish rugby journalist Pat McKay joined me to wade through the fallout of round 2 of the Six Nations and then to think about what we should expect from round 3 this weekend. So go and check it out on 8-9 Rugby on YouTube. Plus wherever you pod. You can get to it as well from 8-9 Rugby on Substack, as I mentioned. Geoff and I were talking about that before. Our new little venture into publishing, building up that new outlet for rugby coverage down this way. And we hope you will join us and join in with the discussion. We're having a really enjoyable time doing that. So find us on Substack. Subscribe now to the exclusive home of Geoff's column, The Wrap, every Monday, and plenty more great writing through the rest of the rugby week as well. Big weekend of rugby coming up this weekend. Round 2 of Super Rugby, round 3 of the Six Nations, with some incredible games coming up in that. But that's another episode of the Oz Rugby scene behind us. My thanks to Geoff for joining us for a great chat. Tell us what you think, of course, by finding 8-9 Rugby on the socials. You can have your say right here on the 8-9 YouTube channel, and you can find me on the socials at BMC Sport as well. This is the Oz Rugby scene on 8-9 Rugby, and we will be back in your ears next week.